Hey friends, Sean from sgtreport.tv and sgtreport.com here. It's 11:30 p.m. Central Time as I record this, and it's my patriotic duty to share this video with you. Have you heard the terms the hammer and scorecard yet? Well, if you haven't, you're going to be hearing a lot more about those terms. And in fact, at the end of this video, you're going to hear those terms spoken by General Flynn's attorney, Sidney Powell herself. What you're about to see is the single most egregious real-time example of electronic vote fraud maybe ever captured, and it occurred live on CNN. I would ask anyone watching this video to rip it, re-upload it, share it, tweet it, and email it to CNN and to anyone on President Trump's team. The mainstream media and big tech continue to claim there is no evidence of vote or election fraud in this election. And that's because they are co-conspirators in this treason. This is an interview between L. Todd Wood and voter fraud researcher Russell Ramsland. And below this video, I will leave a link to the full interview so you can hear many more examples of electronic vote fraud captured by Russell Ramsland.
This is some amazing video that you're seeing from CNN election night. And I want to go back and show you a little bit about this clip. First, I want to explain what's happening in this clip. What's happening in this clip is this is the live feed from Clarity Elections coming through the Associated Desk or Decision Desk HQ. So this is the live feed. You're seeing the database that Clarity has as it gets updated with votes, okay? And right now, oh, and this little ribbon at the bottom, this is generated by CNN, and they update this a second after they get the update from Clarity up here. So let's just look. Right now, Andy Beshear, who is the guy that upset Matt Bevin, the governor at the time, Andy Beshear has 673,948 votes. That ties to what the ribbon from CNN says. Same thing with Matt Bevin, 662,235. 662,235. Now, let me take you through, and real quick, I'm going to run it again. You're going to see, if you're watching just this gold, you're going to see a flash update, and then this guy's face fills the page, and then I'm going to show you what you really missed. So here we go. Watch the gold. The update's coming. Boom, there it updates, and now here's this guy. Now let me show you what you missed. We're going to drag this back frame by frame. And so here we are before the update, and now I'm going to start walking you forward. Watch the gold. Here comes the update from Clarity. Boom. There it is. So now the update, Andy Beshear has 674,508 votes. And look down below, Andy Beshear had 673,948. They haven't had a chance to update the ribbon because this is in split seconds we're looking now. So Andy Beshear has just gained 560 votes. That makes sense. That's what happens as more votes come in, right? Let's look at Matt Bevin. He now has 661,675. But look down below. He did have 662,235 at the exact same second that Andy Beshear has gone up 560 votes. Matt Bevin has gone down 560 votes. This is vote switching in the computer. And by the way, between the 560 gain and 560 loss, you have just seen 25% of the loss amount of this race happen in front of your very eyes.
We just heard from John Solomon that the FBI indeed is being diligent, is involved, and we all hope he is exactly right. Your thoughts first about the knowledge now that the Justice Department is involved in this review of the election.
Well, I'm delighted to hear that. I think there are any number of things they need to investigate, including the likelihood that 3% of the vote total was changed in the pre-election voting ballots that were collected digitally by using the Hammer program and a software program called Scorecard. That would have amounted to a massive change in the vote that would have gone across the country and explains a lot of what we're seeing. In addition, they ran an algorithm to calculate votes they might need to come up with for Mr. Biden in specific areas. I think that explains what happened in Michigan, where the computer glitch resulted in a change of votes of about 5,500 in favor of President Trump, just in one of 47 districts. All those districts need to be checked for that same, quote, software glitch, end quote, that would change the result in Michigan dramatically. The same thing is happening in other states. We've had hundreds of thousands of ballots mysteriously appear solely for Mr. Biden, which is statistically impossible as a matter of mathematics. It can all be documented. We are putting it into materials that we will file in federal court, and we need to seek relief in multiple states to enjoin the certification of any election results.
So let's look at some actual proof of hacking in action. We were called in to look at Kentucky because of the results. The results in Kentucky were amazing. Every Republican at the top of the ticket won big. There were 1,428,000 votes cast, and every Republican won by a margin of 200,000 to 300,000 votes, except for the governor, Matt Bevin. And he loses by 5,000 votes. Now, this may sound familiar to you, and it is, because if you will recall, on election night, our current president was ahead in 5 key battleground states that have Democrat governors, and he was ahead comfortably in all of them. And suddenly all 5 states quit counting at the same time and went offline for 3 hours. And when they came online, suddenly massive numbers of votes. In the case of 3 states, every single vote that was suddenly found in those 3 hours was for one candidate and one candidate only. Absolutely impossible. So this result looked really bad to everybody, and we went up there and we started doing an investigation. And the first thing we said was, now you realize your votes are with Clarity and they're being stored overseas. And they said, no, they're not. And we said, well, yeah, actually they are. Bring up the Kentucky State Board of Elections website on your computer, please. So they did. And we said, click on that link for the unofficial votes. And they did. And when they did, I said, look at that bar at the top of your screen. What's it say? They said, well, Clarity Elections. We said, yeah, you look like you're on the Kentucky State Board of Elections, but this site is Clarity. And they went, wow. And then I said, scroll down to the bottom. Who owns that page? Seidel. And that's when the discussion started. We also saw problems in the tabulation software. For instance, we have a query here that says we would like to see from the database all just the straight party ticket votes, and we would like to see them right here for the governor's race. And I started looking down and I saw precinct C148 and I saw undervotes. And I went, wow, that's kind of weird. How do you get an undervote if you pull the straight party ticket? Well, it turns out in Kentucky you can, but I didn't know that at the time. So I started looking and I mean, I spent hours looking at this. And eventually I went back and I reran the query, or I attempted to rerun the query, just to make sure that I hadn't gotten it wrong. But when I reran the query, I changed the order. Now, it shouldn't matter whether you ask for straight party tickets and the governor's race. It shouldn't matter if you ask for the governor's race and you then refine it by straight party ticket. But it did matter in this case. Same precinct, same number of votes cast, but all the undervotes have gone away. There are no undervotes now. All the undervotes have been awarded to Andy Beshear, and 20% of the Republican votes have been awarded to Andy Beshear. The tabulation software itself, if you know the right order, you can determine who wins. Now, for those of you who may not understand what an undervote is where you start voting down the ballot and you get to, say, the fourth or fifth race, and you just don't know either person and you don't want to vote it at all, and you skip that race. Well, that creates an undervote. It creates a blank space. And so, obviously, in the first one, 8 people skipped the race, but when you ask the query differently, it gives you those 8 votes to the Democrat. This is a problem. So, election fraud or voter fraud right now? Well, it's clearly one or the other. Many of you may have already seen this. This is Michigan, and in the dead of night in Michigan, Michigan suddenly quit counting votes for 3 hours. And when they started counting votes again, suddenly 138,339 new ballots had been found. Now, that's 2.9% of all the turnout. All of them, by the way, unattested. And they show up, and every single one of them is for Biden. So notice, Trump had 2,200,902, and this update 2,200,902. Biden had 1,992,356, and over here he has 2,130,695. That's the additional vote. Every single new vote is given to Biden. Jorgensen doesn't get any, Hawkins doesn't get any, Blankenship doesn't get any. This is a problem. Now, what's been learned since then is that it's being called a data input error from one particular county. But it's not an input error unless the local operator is adding votes. So, is this America or Venezuela we're living through right now? And it's a very interesting question. Essentially, 5 key battleground states with Democrat governors all suddenly quit counting at the same time in the dead of night, and then they suddenly resumed 3 hours later. Trump was comfortably ahead in all 5 of them when they stopped. When counting resumed 3 hours later, enough new ballots had been found in all 5 states, 5 out of 5, that suddenly Biden is caught up. Even more incredibly, virtually every single found ballot in most of the states was for Biden. And unsurprisingly, in Michigan, it's now known that the votes were a bogus file upload. So, and one state, Wisconsin, now has more votes than their entire registered voters. Nationally, that turnout was 50 to 60%, which is huge, but 100+% is really huge.